to own it. Just wanted to take the time, learn all the things that I could about you. Now it's such a mess here. Oh, we are just stressed here. Used to be so easy with you.
Thank you for coming on the show today.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
I heard you have the talent that most of us are looking for in life.
Ah, well, you know, it's my passion. My name is Indhushree, and I'm a clinical psychologist and coach, a relationship coach. So I love helping people find the love of their lives. That's what I'm passionate about.
So how did you get started into that?
Well, I mean, I've gone through a lot in my own life, and I think all of us who want to meet the one, who want to, you know, be with that meant to be person, we have all gone through heartbreak, we've all gone through rejection, and I have too. So, you know, I was just determined that whenever I went through relationships that didn't work or situations that were difficult, I was going to keep going, and I was going to learn from all of my experiences. So as I learned, I started to create little tools and little strategies that would help me so that when I got back out there and I was ready to start dating again, I had learned and I could use what I'd learned to come closer, you know, get to that space where I could meet the person meant for me, and I did. So I'm...
Wow. So you're using those tools to tell people how to meet their...
Yeah, you know, I mean, I love seeing people, watching people get to a space of being their higher self and really being able to experience being seen and being loved for who they are. I think too many people, I know that over the course of the pandemic, I was working so much, and most of the time, so many people were just suffering from loneliness, depression, and single people were like, oh my gosh, you know, now with all the shutdowns, I can't date. How am I going to meet someone? Am I, you know, and that there's that despair that sets in around, you know, I don't want to be alone anymore, and I just want to make, you know, and I mean, I believe that that we can absolutely meet the people that are meant for us, and that's what I love to do, is to see people finally meet the people that they can marry and be happy with. They're happily ever after.
So being a clinical psychologist, what kind of like psychology do you like specialize in? Is it just relationships?
Well, I mean, I work with clients, you know, of all ages, from all backgrounds. I help people with everything from, you know, career success to parenting, and I work with little ones too, but I'm also, I work with people in terms of like all different kinds of relationships.
So there's not a specialized, are you specialized in?
Well, I am specialized in relationship coaching.
But all kinds, so workspace, parents connecting with their children, okay.
Absolutely, but right now I'm really focused on helping singles find the love of their lives. That's really what I've been putting a lot of my energy into.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm excited because I've done the work, I've gone through, and you know, whatever experiences I've had, I've translated them into tools to help people so that they don't have to go through heartbreak over and over and over again. You know? Well,
what's interesting, and I don't know, I'm sure you've observed so much, I notice a lot of successful women have trouble in relationships. I know it's like, you can't really use excuses. I know there's always someone for everybody. Did you notice that was a challenge? So because you are so successful, that was a challenge in the dating world?
You know, it's interesting because a lot of relationships, when you really look at it, come down to power, right? So are we comfortable? Do we know who we are? Are we comfortable with the power that we have? Do we even recognize it? I think a lot of times when I work with women, what I notice is they don't realize, oh, I have a voice. I can actually set my boundaries. I can actually step into my power. And you know, and I think on the other side of it, I think men oftentimes feel a little intimidated by women. And I think, you know, everybody's situation is different, but my expertise is in human behavior. So I'm really good at identifying patterns that people are stuck in, so that when, you know, people use my tools, they have a better understanding of who they are, why they've been stuck. Maybe, you know, now I'm ready for a relationship. I didn't know that I wasn't ready before, but now I do. So with that self-awareness, then there's confidence and there's self-esteem, and the things that we struggle for, we start to feel grounded, right? Because we have a better understanding of who we are. And then as you know, I work with my clients, we're able to identify, wow, okay, this is a loop that I've been in for a while, and so this is how I can break it. And then people start to see relationships differently, they start to see themselves differently, and then they're actually able to meet people who actually see them for who they are and love them back.
Wow. So how did you discover all of this? What were some of the mistakes you feel like you made? I know there's like really no mistakes because every experience is a learning experience, but what were some of the blocks that you had to really go further in your past relationships?
Well, I mean, for me, I think I've been through a lot of things in my life. I'm a survivor of trauma. I've gone through, I've had failed relationships like everyone else, but I think life is really about how you hold it. I mean, you can have 10 people that go through the same thing, and you'll have 10 different outcomes,
exactly.
Right? Mm-hmm. And that comes down to perspective. So to me, what excites me is to help people see differently, because if you see differently, you start to live differently. And if you live differently, then you start to feel confident. And then you actually believe, hey, you know what? I can actually have the things that I want in my life. I can actually have my happily ever after.
What are some of the biggest problems you've seen? I've always heard communication is the number one stumbling block, that, if you have that open, then everything else is good. What else have you seen? Some of our patterns that we're making mistakes in.
Well, I'll tell you something. One of the things that I talk about a lot is chemistry, right? That mysterious word, chemistry. People sexualize it right away. People romanticize it right away. But if we really think about what chemistry is, it's an irresistible draw to something. That doesn't mean it's good. Right?
Right.
But if you've already sexualized it, then you're going to start to explain away the red flags. You're going to start to explain away the things that you probably should have been paying attention to. And that's where I come in, because I can help people understand. I have people that come to me like, oh, I always end up dating the bad boy. What's that about? Or I always end up dating somebody who'll cheat on me. Or, I always end up with somebody who's super cheap, and I feel like I'm being used, right?
Oh, yeah. We've all heard them all.
Oh, my gosh. We have so many stories, right?
We all have a friend that has a story like
Yeah, yeah.
So why do we get stuck in these dating patterns? Usually that's our chemistry, that we're stuck to the cheap person, or we're stuck to the bad boy, or we're stuck to...
So we have a couple of different levels on which we function, right? There's this ego-based level. That's the level of gotta pay the bills, gotta go to work, gotta get the kids to school.
Okay.
And it's that conscious level of, okay, what's right in front of me? But all of us have been formed over time by our experiences, by our losses, by our parents, our home environment. So wherever we feel at home, we're going to find patterns of ways that we've learned how to be, right? Because we grow up watching mom and dad, and so whatever mom and dad do, good or bad or in the middle somewhere, that's what's normal for us. And so we live out what's normal. If you grew up in a household, for example, where dad cheated on mom, then infidelity might be normal to you. Now, if you ask anybody who's dating, no one's going to tell you, oh yeah, I want a partner that cheats on me, obviously.
Right.
But at a certain level, that's the dynamic that we're used to. That's what we've seen. That's what we've understood. That's where we've been brought up, right? So at an energetic level, we tend to draw in whatever we're used to if we have not done the work to make our lives conscious, right? If we're not living consciously, if we're living unconsciously, then we're going to play out the patterns that are familiar to us.
So living consciously is realizing what your parents did and trying to break that cycle or pattern?
It's about really looking at, okay, am I willing to look at myself? Am I willing to try to understand my choices, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of times we will, for example, we won't necessarily know why we're attracted to a certain person. There's just something about him.
Exactly.
Or there's just something about her. But as we start to get to know someone, I show my clients different things that they can do, different ways in which they can observe, questions that they can ask. They start to assess, is this person really a fit for me, right? But if we're not doing that, if we just go with that attraction and we don't question it, then usually we end up in the same pattern, right? Because I believe that we're designed to survive and we're designed to heal. And part of that being designed to heal is that we encounter the same guy again, right? I mean, you know, it's nobody wants to make the same mistakes again. But unless we really stop, and what I mean by being conscious is being able to really introspect, go inside, and really better understand why you make the choices that you make. Because then that's when the pattern's going to be there. It's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize I tend to pick guys who are, you know, narcissistic. They're all about themselves. And where did I get that? Okay, well, I had that. That was a quality of my dad. Or we can kind of track where that's from. Right.
What's a big problem that we have now? Because right now there's a lot of different things going on that, I mean, there's online dating. We didn't have that before. 50% of people are growing up in divorce homes. A lot of people didn't even see, in this phase, you know, the millennials, well, you haven't even seen their parents interact. They never even knew their parents together. So now they have that whole thing. They don't even know how their parents ever interacted together because they never got to see that. And now we have this, like, Peter Pan syndrome where, like, these boys don't want to grow up. Like, men don't prioritize getting married or having kids well into, like, till they're 50 because they just don't have to. How do you overcome those dynamics?
Well, I think that, again, we come back to, I encourage my clients, I have different tools that help them get clear on what they want, what they don't want, what they're ready for, what they're not ready for, and what are deal breakers, right? What are the things that you can maybe negotiate about, right? Maybe, okay, well, it'd be nice to be with someone who's 6'2", but I'm not going to necessarily. It's okay. He can be a little bit shorter than that. I mean, that's a different level of what you're looking for, right? But like somebody who has a full-time job, somebody who has a career instead of a job.
Right.
These are some of the things that we need to be mindful as we go into dating. You know, what are the things that, what is the kind of person that I want to draw into my life, and what does building a life with someone look like, right? And I think a lot of times we just immediately go after the guy that's cute, or the girl that's sweet, or whatever, which is fine. I mean, attraction's real. But do we take the time to really interview people? Do we really take the time to get to know who is this person in front of me, instead of this being in this romantic cloud of who I think they are? People project onto each other all the time, right? So rather than really listening to the person in front of you and really getting that person to tell you who they are, we start to kind of get into that romantic bubble of, oh my gosh, I think he's like this, or I think she's like that. And then it gets lost in translation. And then pretty soon we realize, oh my gosh, I got ghosted. This happened to me again. I can't believe this happened to me again, right?
But I am seeing, like, because I have a lot of, like, single friends, and I do see people having different priorities. So a lot of times people find these people that seem like very compatible and good mates, but then they have different visions. So the girl might want to get married sooner, and the guy has all this time in the world because, like I've said, they've had like, this Peter Pan complex, and they don't have a biological clock. So there's that dynamic. And then you also have, like, an online dating, like, you know, booming, and how to navigate. People ask me that all the time, and I've never actually online dated. People always ask me, like, I have some advice about that I don't have. So what do you tell people that are experiencing that do find a good person, but then the visions are different, and then that are wondering where to start as far as, like, online dating goes? What are some of those answers to those questions?
Well, I mean, the key thing with online dating is it's important to meet the person as soon as possible. You need to be face-to-face as soon as possible, because remember, we are in that kind of that fairy tale mode, right? Because there's the, oh my gosh, he's cute, and he emailed me back, or he, you know, we get excited about this kind of stuff.
Which is kind of like a fake chemistry, right? Because you haven't met yet.
Right. You can't say that this is
right.
really, oh, he's really compatible if you haven't met somebody in person yet, right? But I have clients that come to me and like, well, I don't know. I mean, I thought I knew him. We talked on the phone for a month. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Have you been in person with him?
Right.
Because
okay.
you know, you interview people all the time. The energy of people is something that can't be translated.
Oh, very much. I did Zoom interviews during COVID, and it was completely different. I tell people all the time, it's completely different.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the first thing is you can't be trading emails for a month or talking on the phone
right.
for a month. You've got to be in person as soon as you can. And I tell my clients, it's like, you know, don't jump into bed with someone. You know, it's important to really hold space with someone and ask questions and interact, to not romanticize or sexualize something immediately, because it's going to distort what you see.
Right.
You're not going to be objective. You're not going to, because you'll want this person to be the one. Because you want this person to be the one, you're going to start making excuses for this person. right? But the thing that nobody gets out of is that people show you who they are over time, right? Over a dinner, or when someone's flirting with you, they can tell you anything, right? But just because someone tells you something doesn't mean it's true. We have to, and that's why I wanted to develop these tools, and that's why I'm excited to coach people, because I've been through all of those things, and I've done that work to every time it's like, okay, I'm going to pick myself up, dust myself off, and I'm going to learn from this experience. And as we start to really commit to learn from our experiences, we create the life that we want. We draw in the relationship that we want. Mm-hmm.
So where do we go to get all this advice? And do you do seminars?
I do seminars.
Okay.
I also do one-on-one coaching. So I have my own practice, the Conscious Life Psychological Services, and I would love to give your viewers a free gift. Anybody who emails me, my email is Dr. Rajan, that's DRRAJAN, @theconscious-life.com. Will get a free evaluation from me so that we can really see where you're at. Where are you right now? How are you stuck? And what's it going to take to break those patterns to put you on the path to being with your meant-to-be person?
I love that. This is so cool. Thank you I'd love to have you back.
Absolutely. It'd be my pleasure. I'd love it.
It'd be so fun to even see, I'm sure your clients would be open to this, but even tracking someone's progress, because this is so fascinating.
Oh, absolutely. I love what I do, and I'm happy to talk about it again.
Are you on Instagram or Facebook or anything that we could follow
I'm on Facebook, so
okay.
I'm at the Conscious Life Psychological Services on Facebook.
Okay.
I do have a website as well. It's theconscious-life.com. But the best way to get a hold of me is my email, because I would love to send out that free gift.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, everybody, you got to email her. Thank you for coming on my show today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on my show today.
Thank you for having me.
So tell our viewers who you are and what you do.
Well, my name is Linda Espinoza, and I am, first of all, I'm a child of God. So I really want to stress that, because I really do believe that He has me here for a reason. And my story is that I'm a widow. My husband died 5 years ago, and
How did he pass away?
he had Lou Gehrig's disease for 7 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I was his caregiver and wife, and it pretty much, you're in a situation like that, you really become more of a caregiver than a wife.
What was
So-
the prognosis at the time? I'm sure you learned everything you could about the disease. What were they saying when he first got diagnosed?
Well, what they said is he had 2 to 5 years to live. So we were always kind of living to die and not dying to live.
Right.
And that's what I learned more than anything halfway down the journey, is that we were pretty much waiting for this event to happen, and it just took like it took everything from me, from him, obviously. And that's where Angels Among Us came from, and me being a best-selling author in our Defining Moments book, because I was featured in two of the chapter books, and
and there were, okay.
right, and so the first one was my defining moment.
Oh, I know I read the story, but I can't, okay, I want to go back and read that.
Yes,
Okay.
it was my defining moment of, and it was stories of survival, and it was how we survived, all the people, all the authors that were in there, how you
Right.
survived the unthinkable, and so my story was dying to live, because at that time, that's what I wanted to do. Like I said, we were living to die and not dying to live. And so that defining moment changed my life and the way I was going to look at life. And were we going to wait for it to happen, or were we going to change the way things were going in our lives? And so I had asked my husband, I said, I was really depressed, and I was trying not to be. I was trying to just be so strong, and just trying to just not ask why. Most people, it's like, why? But I didn't want to ask why, because for me, if I asked why, I felt like I was doubting God and what he was going to do through this. But at that very moment, I did. I said, don't you ever ask why? And he said, no. And my husband lost his voice. He lost his ability to literally do anything. He couldn't even go to the bathroom by himself. He couldn't eat.
Yeah, he said,
nothing.
you were a full-time caregiver.
Right. And so he said no. He says, because he says, I'm just grateful that this didn't happen when our kids were young, and that I got to spend the time with them that we did. And it changed my whole perspective on how we were going to live from that day on. And so I changed things, and we started living. We started going everywhere. We started doing everything. Started going to my son's, my son at the time, one of my sons, I have 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter. And so at that time, we were missing out on a lot of my son's life. These were his last high school years. And I told my husband, I said, we're going to go to everything that Marcel has. I said, I don't care if they just announce his name. We're going to be there. And we did. And we started living. We started just, really just living life. And so it just changed my perspective on everything. And so after my husband died, which was 5 years ago, I wanted to live. I wanted to do the things that I had never done. And one of the things that I did is I went to Israel. It was a 37-year dream. I'd wanted to go there all my life. And so because of that, in 2020, I said, I'm going. And I went, and it completely changed my life. It completely changed the way I read the Bible. It came to life.
Right.
I came to life.
Wow.
There. And there was a moment where I knew I was home. I knew I was home in that place. It just, it changed everything. And so with that change, I didn't get to go back again. I wanted to go back again, but COVID happened. And so I went back last year, or not last year, I went back this year in February, because I knew that once that opportunity was, I was able to go, that I would do it. And so I went back this year, and I had a life-changing thing happen to me there this year. And what happened is I had baggage, my luggage was, I overpacked, which I always do, which a lot of women do, right?
Yeah.
But I had overpacked, and so there was all these issues with my luggage, and not having enough room, and but anyway, it was just a metaphor for my life and what was happening in my life. And what was happening is I had not let go of my past, of not necessarily my husband, because he's gone, but what I realized is that baggage was representing what was going on in my life, and the turmoil that I was still holding on to. I was still holding on to a lot of grief, still holding on to shame, a lot of shame, and a lot of women and men that have lost a spouse especially, you know, you carry shame for the things that you didn't do, for the things that you did do, all these different things. And what I realized is while I was living in this freedom that I sought so much, I was also living in kind of the way all this baggage. You know, I felt like I could look back and there was so much baggage that I was just carrying along on these amazing trips. And I really believe that God doesn't want that for me. He wants me to live in the purpose that He has me here for. And what I feel that what I believe that I'm here for is to help other women, other men, that, you know, people that have lost a loved one and they don't know how to let go of that baggage. And my purpose, like I said, even in my home, in the things that I'm doing now, I mean, my children literally had to have an intervention with me. You know, here you are, you're the mother, they're the children, but they're having to say, Mom, look, something's happening, this is happening, and we want to help you. But I was really the type of person that didn't want to ask for help, and it was very hard for me to receive help. And I think there's a lot of, like I said, I think there's a lot of women and men that are struggling with this, you know, this wanting to let go of that chapter in their life. And I feel like I hadn't turned the page for, you know, from where I was at to where I'm at, because my passion, first of all, is my faith in God. And so I really believe that in order for me to walk in that purpose, that I have to be willing to let go. And that's not always easy. But I decided that, like, I'm going to exchange that baggage for luggage for this next new trip that I'm going to go on, this journey that I believe is for everyone, not just for me. That, you know, it's like sometimes you have to have that defining moment, and you have to, like, really reflect on where you've been and where you're going.
Well said. And I mean, it's interesting because you're saying, you know, it was baggage, like, afterwards, after all that. I'm curious about how you did everything while you were just struggling with it. Like you said, you had to be strong. So where do you go when you have the bad days? And then I've always thought about this, and this is me, you don't have to answer it, but I've always thought I couldn't tackle, like, someone having that kind of illness, because there's a part of me where I was like, oh, is it over yet? Is this? So you kind of like, not like, oh, when are you going to diet? But you're kind of like, you just wanted, you're just kind of like, when is this going to be, like, you know, done? And I can't, how do you deal with feelings like that? How do you even say something like that? And who do you talk to like that?
Right. Well, first of all, you talk to God a lot. It's like
right.
you have a lot of God moments, you know. But I journaled a lot, and I really believe that that's a tool that a lot of people can use, because, and now as I look back, I mean, I can see myself, and I was, you know, I almost wonder how I got through that moment myself, because I did find myself always saying, like, how much longer?
Right.
A lot. And so there was a little bit of shame about that for a while.
Yeah, because you don't want them to die, and you don't.
Because I knew that the only way it was going to end is with him dying,
right,
because of the disease. Unless God was going to, you know, give him a miracle, and I believe in miracles. But that didn't happen. That doesn't mean it wasn't a miracle, though. It was a miracle. It was a miracle that we survived it, and it was a miracle that we had, that I can sit here and I can still be thankful for everything we went through, because it changed who I am. And I believe that it can change many people when you begin to see the goodness in everything, because there's a seed of goodness in everything, even tragedy. And God can use tragedy for triumph. You know, He can take our messes and create a wonderful message, you know, that all things are possible, you know, through Him. And again, I'll always go back to my faith, because I couldn't be sitting here if it weren't for that. I truly believe that's, you know, that's my greatest thing that I could say. But there were things that I did. You know, I did a lot of walking. I did a lot of I did a Back to Life with Melanie program that really helped me in the beginning. You know, I've done grief share. I've done like different things. I sat at the table a lot with a lot of people, and you know what?
good.
I have to say that that's one of the things that also brought a lot of healing in being able to be vulnerable and being able to express the things that we want to hold inside. It's like we're just trapped. You know, it's kind of the way my husband was. He was trapped in his body. This disease is a disease. Lou Gehrig's is a disease that they say that you're entombed in your body, and you know every minute of when things start shutting down in your body, your brain is always aware of it. So can you imagine? You know, I had a moment one time where I wanted to make myself understand what he was going through. And so I just laid there for 10 minutes on the couch, or my bed, just laying there, not moving, not allowing myself to move. I just laid there. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? Everything on my body started itching. Like I was itchy. I wanted to scratch. It was so horrific, because you don't understand what a person is going through when they're in a position like that. So I definitely, it gave me more compassion, more understanding, you know, and it gives me more compassion now when I see other people that are going through things like that, you know. So I definitely believe that it gave me a quality that I could never have learned any other way.
Where can we get this book?
We can. My email is lindaespn@yahoo.com, and if you would like a book, you can also get a signed book. So you can reach me there, and I definitely would love to autograph it, and send lots of love for.
So that's the way we can't order it yet?
You can order it on Amazon.
Okay.
But they can also reach me at lindaespn
I love that.
@yahoo.com. Another thing, I'd also like to invite anybody that is willing to go with me to Israel to contact me, because I would love to take them with me on a trip that will change their lives, because I really believe that that's where the most transformation has come in this second chapter of my life.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I deeply appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
So you're also
Another one.
that's in this book. So tell our audience about yourself and what you do.
Well, I'm
Clovis native.
a Clovis. Well, not really, but I raised my girls in Clovis.
Okay.
So, but I was raised in New Jersey, actually.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah. And I got as far away from my parents as I could in Arizona. It's probably not nice. Hope Mom doesn't watch this. And so I'm just a dumb college girl, and working the 3 to 11 shift in a Circle K, attending music school. You know, I wanted to be a piano teacher.
3 p.m. to 11 p.m.?
3 to 11 p.m., all by myself in the worst part of town.
In Arizona?
In Tucson.
Okay.
North side of Tucson. I don't know whose bright idea it was to do that. Who does that? Anyway, so I'm middle of the day, this man comes in, and he says, "Oh, you want to go out tonight?" And he was good looking. I mean, really good looking, and I mean, better looking than me. You know, I was sort of surprised, like, wow, he wants to go out with me. And my dad had always said, you know, just look in their eyes and you'll know whether they're good or not. So I looked at him, and he had pretty blue eyes, and he was very charming. And I said, okay, I get off at 11. And at 11, I was counting the money, not really thinking anything much about it. And but I looked out the window, and his car was parked out against the road.
Is that weird?
Totally. I thought that was a little strange.
Where should he have been parked at?
You know, when you pull up in a Circle K,
It's kind of like
you pull up in front of the store.
Especially if you're going to walk out there, you got to be.
Yeah. So why do you hide all the way out the road? So I still wasn't suspicious. I'm like the most gullible person in the whole world. So I was going to go out until I heard this woman's voice yell, "Don't go out!" And it was about that loud in my head. It couldn't have been in the room because there was nobody in there, but so it just scared me. So I ran to the big slider doors and padlocked them. There was a giant padlock. And I rode my bike home the back way. I thought, yeah, if he's looking for me,
Oh, that's so
I'll
scary.
ride
Oh my
bike.
gosh.
Yeah. But I don't think I talked to my sister about it, that I was living with. I don't even think I mentioned, oh yeah, I heard a voice that told me not to go out. I don't even think I told her. And but 2 nights later at closing time, he was standing in front of me. And I just knew I wasn't going to go out with him. So I said, oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't here. I couldn't go out with you the other night. Something came up. And he said, oh, I wasn't here anyway. And I look out, and there's that same Volkswagen parked out against the road. And I go, well, you got to go. And I walked him to the door, and it was almost closing, so I pulled the sliders almost shut. So as I got to the door, I took the padlock in my hand and turned sideways. I expected him to slide out, and I was going to pull the door behind me. But instead, he grabbed me in between my legs and there. Probably expecting me to faint, like most girls probably would have. And this is the neat part. And I am writing another book. I'm included in this, but I'm also writing another book. This is a test. Because I was a rager. If somebody gave me any amount of trouble in a mall, I would rage at them. I would let them have it. I would make them feel so sorry that they had ever lived. And
You weren't that meek little girl that goes off and
no,
yeah.
I wasn't. And so when he touched me like that, I raised my fist with that padlock in it, and I roared. I don't want to scare your audience, but I roared, get out! I did scare them, I'm sorry. And I scared him.
Wow.
I scared Ted Bundy. I saw the fear in his face.
Oh my God.
He stepped out the door. Oh, I didn't tell you it was Ted Bundy, but it was Ted Bundy. Stepped out the door, and I padlocked that door from the inside, and then my legs gave out. I mean, I was super surprised that my legs gave out. I would not, if he'd got me to the car, he'd already killed 15 girls by then. He didn't have a seat in the car. So I would have been no match for him, because my rage obviously didn't last very long. And so, yeah. I called the police. They went through all the mug shots with me. He wasn't local, so there was no mug shots. Told them they didn't find him because he went on to kill so many more girls. Looked just like me, because I did have my hair parted in the middle and dirty blonde hair down to here, just like all the other victims,
Wow. So at what point, when did he get caught in correlations? Like at what point did you realize how dangerous he was?
I honestly did not want to connect it to Ted Bundy. I watched the news. I watched everything over the next years. I wouldn't watch the movie. I didn't pick up the books. I couldn't deal with it. In fact, I'm sort of surprised I'm not shaking, because it was 48 years ago. And every time I'd tell the story, I would shake. In the beginning, I would shake for days if I told the story. Oh, yeah. So I really haven't told the story until it's been in this book, because I just don't like that shaking feeling.
So he was caught kind of about a year after?
Oh, I think it was longer than that.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it was longer than that. Yeah.
And so then from there on, you survived.
Yeah.
You went on, you did other things.
Yeah, I became a piano teacher, and I studied with Philip Lorenz from Fresno from Fresno State who changed my life and gave me a technique that's fabulous. And so that's what I do. I play peaceful music that calms people and makes them relax. And
So that was almost like your
inspirational.
therapy.
Yeah, it's possible. And I also got healed from my raging. And so that's going to be included in my book, how I got healed from raging. It was pretty miraculous. I have a lot of miracles. I mean, my book that's coming out is called This Is a Test. This is only a test. And it's about, what do you do when you hear correction? Do you do it? Or if you hear a voice that says, go this way, do you go? Or do you argue? Like once I put a candle next to the flammables in the garage, and I heard a voice. It said, don't leave that there. And I said, oh, I'll be right back. And I went in another door, and about an hour later, we see these little tendrils of smoke coming from between the garage door and the kitchen, and open the door, and there's an inferno. My Jeep is already fully engulfed in flames. My truck and the garage doors are burnt off. They're gone. The roof's on fire up there. The next door neighbor is in danger of burning down. And I had celebrant singers at the house. And they're on the front lawn praying.
Oh my goodness.
And my daughter sees her briar horses up in the window and is going, Mommy, my briar horses. And I said, well, they're just things, honey. We're okay. But the fire marshal said, I don't know why this fire did not go up and over and consume your whole house and stopped at the garage. He said, in fact, when I examined the fire pattern, it looked like the fire went round and round in the bottom of the garage.
Wow.
I know. And the lesson that I was learning at that time was not to be so covetous of my things, because I had a really nice piano. And when the celebrants came in the house the night before, one of them had said, oh, I can't wait to play your piano. And I said, yeah, we'll see. I know, a nasty snob.
But the piano didn't last, right? That didn't
The
get
piano was untouched.
Wow.
Oh yeah, no, the fire did not get into the house.
That's a miracle.
Oh, my daughter had a little trapdoor up in the second story that had been open for months, and she, for some reason, had shut it just a night or two before the fire.
Wow.
And if that had been open, that would have given it access into the house.
Oh my goodness.
And so my book, This Is a Test, will be about, do you hear and do you do? So that was a fail.
I just like that. It's funny because I believe like my instincts are always right. It's whether or not I've listened to them. So I totally understand.
And then my daughter, my oldest daughter, was actually stolen by a woman, stolen out of my car while I'd run in to get a little blotter. And while I'm in there, I hear this shriek, and I see a woman run by. I was just, in there a second. I see this woman run by with a baby in a blanket that looked just like my baby's blanket. And I'm like, just a minute. I run out, and I see her. I don't know how I knew. She went into like a blind alley between the grocery store and the stationery store. So I ran to the car to make sure that it really was my baby. Sure enough, my baby's gone. And just when I wheel to run back there, she comes out of that blind alley, and she starts yelling at me. You don't deserve to have this baby. And I'm yelling, why would you take my baby? And anyway, the police said that a lot of babies went missing at that time of year. It was some satanic holiday.
Wow.
So listening. And I believe an angel pinched her, because it was really weird. I mean, it was like a shriek, like if somebody pinched you. Mm-hmm. Because if she hadn't shrieked right when she went in front of the window, I wouldn't have seen her.
And you're also a widow.
Yes.
So how long has that?
17 years.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So were your kids still young during that time? Or?
No, it was my second marriage. I married a preacher, a Bible teacher, Annette Duncan. That's where my name's from. He was a wonderful teacher here in town, and really teaches the Bible. I had 7 books on Bible teaching, and it's really, so the book, This Is a Test, it does go. In fact, I asked the Lord, because I used to, do, you know how pastors' wives always get to do the Bible studies, whether they're good or not. So, so I'd always do these Bible studies, and I'd always say, "This is a test. This is only a test." And then one day I sort of said, God, really? Am I really supposed to write that book? So what scripture is it? Sort of being a snot. And instantly I hear Revelations 3:17. And it's the one that says, "You're rich and increase with goods, and don't know that you're blind and naked and miserable and wretched. And I advise of you to buy gold of me, tried in the fire." So Eddie he'd get in the concordance, he'd look up the words in the original Greek. So I got right in there and looked up wretched and miserable. It's amazing. Miserable means I feel sorry for you. Doesn't mean miserable. And wretched doesn't mean wretched. It means undergoing a trial.
Wow.
So he's saying, you think you're rich and increased with goods, and you don't know that I feel sorry for you because you don't know. This is a test.
And that's where the title comes from. I love that. Where can we follow you and see what's going on and when This Is a Test is coming out?
I have a website, lauraplaispiano.com.
Love it.
Yeah, it's good. And I do teach piano, and I'm qualified to teach in groups, and
Just share your email so everyone can get a hold of you.
it's lauraplaispiano@google.com.
Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much for coming on my show today.
Thank you for having me.
So tell my viewers a little bit about your background.
25 years ago, I was a novice mom. I didn't understand anything about special education. My background today, I'm a special education advocate. I advocate for families that need services from the school district. I'm a paralegal. I've had tremendous amounts of awards throughout the last 25 years that I've been advocating.
Were you like a stay-at-home mom?
In the beginning, I took care of both my sons, and then I ended up doing work in the business with my husband at the time. It was a construction business, and then we ended up having challenges with our children in special education. My son Jonathan and Omar, both of them are considered twice exceptional, meaning they're highly gifted and learning disabled. Jonathan and Omar, both of them have high IQs of 145.
Wow.
They have ADHD. Jonathan has severe dyslexia, OCD, speech and language deficits. And Omar Jr. has ADHD. He has writing and vocabulary deficits, and he deals with depression. And so I needed to go to the school district and ask for an individual education plan, which is an IEP, for students to be able to get services to remediate what I just spoke of.
What time was this, like the 90s, early 2000s?
It was in the mid to late 90s.
Okay.
Jonathan, I found out there was something going on with him at the age, my goodness, maybe even 8 months old. But by the time he got into preschool, he was very hyper. He would be the child that would, stick a child with a pencil, bite a child. I was always, "Mrs. Marhaba, we need to talk to you," always in the office with the principal. And he could not learn the alphabets. He was unable to learn the alphabets. Pre-K, K, first grade, only 11 letters of the alphabets. He ended up being retained in this first grade at 7 years old. He was unable to read, had extreme difficulties. When we retained him into the first grade, the second time he did first grade, teacher called me up and said, "Mrs. Marhaba, we need to have a chat, come to the school." And when I went there, she says, "Your son can't read." And I says, "What do you mean my son can't read? He's been with you for 4 months. 4 months into the school year, you're telling me my son can't read?"
Wow.
And so she says, "Well, they have, back then, they have like a half a table where the students sit on outside and the teacher sits the opposite." And she would go and she would have each child read from a book. And my son Jonathan happened to be the last child sitting, waiting for his turn to read through the book. And so he would read, they would all read, and when it came to him, he would read beautifully. But he would look into her eyes, and not once would he look at the book. And so one time she realized that, and she says to him, now look in the book and read for me, and he couldn't read a word.
Wow.
And that's where the journey started. I was a very novice mom. I had no idea what special education was, what an IEP was, what a 504 plan was. These are services that the school district provides, public school district provides this free of charge to the families. There's so much political red tape and processes that you have to go through as a parent, and if you don't know what you're talking about, if you don't know the rules, the laws, if you don't know how to read assessments, then it is very difficult for you to navigate the broken national special education system. So back then, I was unaware of what dyslexia was, what ADHD was, and then Jonathan had gotten a psychoeducational report, and the psychologist would assess him in the areas of social, emotional, behavioral, cognitive, and academic domains. And through that report, the psychologist told me that your son has a very high IQ, but he can't read. He's in the mentally retarded range for reading. His IQ was 145, and if average is 100, his reading ability was at 67. So there was extreme discrepancy between his IQ and his ability to read.
Wow.
And so we went through the school system, lots of IEPs, meetings with the school staff, and that consists of about 7 to 8, maybe 10 school staff, paid employees, and me, the mom. And when you don't know anything about the services, you don't know what an IEP is, you don't know what each assessor would talk about your child, so they would do these assessment reports, and they would talk about the IQ, the reading, the writing, the math. And they would come up with all these acronyms and start throwing them at you. And as a novice mom that has never experienced this before, you believe what the school says, and I was at the mercy of the school district. And I did everything they wanted me to do, and it came to the point where Jonathan still was not reading, and he wasn't able to progress. And as he was growing, he was just getting behavioral problems. He was in trouble. He was getting bullied. It's an underlying cause of an unidentified problem, and I call it the invisible disability, because you cannot see what's wired, what's in the confinements of your brain, how your brain is wired. So in exterior, I mean, you look very beautiful, but I don't know what's in your brain. I don't know how your brain is wired.
Right.
And so this kid would be misbehaving, and nobody really understood him. And his whole problem was he couldn't learn.
How frustrating.
So I ended up initiating a due process against the second largest school district in the nation. It took about 8 years, because after Jonathan, within 2-3 years into due process, which was amended 4 times on him, my other son, Omar, teacher said, you have a problem with Omar. He is unable to write. His vocabulary is deficit, and he needs an IEP and an individual education plan as well. And then same thing happened with my son Omar. He was bullied by his 6th grade teacher. He was very depressed. He didn't want to go to school. Barely graduated high school 6 months early, by the way, but by the time he graduated high school, we had gone through 4 due processes on him, 4 due processes on Jonathan. When we went to 9th Circuit Federal Court, with the school district, we actually at the state level settled 50-50, and both attorneys appealed to the 9th Circuit Federal Court. That's how we got there. And then when the judge at 9th Circuit Federal Court saw the case, called my ex-husband, now I'm divorced, into his chambers and said, as much as I believe your son has a case, I can't rule on it, because I don't want to be the first judge on a national level to open up the floodgates to convert a 504 plan into an IEP. You see, a 504 plan provides accommodations, an IEP plan provides services. So he remanded it back to the state and told the state judge, you need to do a 50-50, since you did a 50-50 split, you need to make a final decision. And the state judge said to me, I'm going to order the school district to assess your child, so I'm going to give you a court order to allow the school district to assess Omar, so that you can go back to the IEP table, and whatever the decision is, that's how if you're going to win or lose the lawsuit. Well, imagine I start at the school level, go to the state level, go to the 9th Circuit Federal Court, go back to the state level, go back to the school district. You're talking 7-digit lawsuit, 8 years of hell, marriage impacted, failing marriage. Kids don't get any services until you win the lawsuit. So it was very emotionally and financially draining for my family and I.
But you did win the lawsuit.
I won both lawsuits, all 8 of them actually, for both sons. But it,
Took you 8 years.
8 years
And
because
then they're adults, but
they're adults. Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. But it took. The good thing is that I did not understand any of this, and when I finally figured out what was going on, it's the school district. It's all about money and budgeting, and I had come into one of the principals of the school district was compassionate towards me during hearing. We had 10 days of hearing from my son Omar's lawsuit, and I told her after it was all over, can I meet you at Starbucks and we have off the record just talk. I just want to talk to you. And she said, sure. So we met at Starbucks, and I said to her, I have one question for you. She said, what is it? I said, why did you take a middle-class family to Ninth Circuit Federal Court? Why would you do that? And her answer was, because 1% of the people, of the families, sue the district, and you're the one that went all the way, and as hard as you pushed, we had to push back. And so that was kind of how all this started, and because of that I started a nonprofit for special needs, and then I wrote the book Unstoppable, and the book is pretty much about everything that I've gone, my journey. My son Jonathan and Omar, both of them co-authored the book with me, so you can get a perspective of a mom's point of view and what the children go through and what they've endured in the school district. And then there's also the triumph, and you get to learn about our losses and our wins as a family.
And so how are they doing now? You have one of your sons here today.
I do. My sons are incredible. I'm very proud. Jonathan worked for my construction company for about 16 years. He ran 3 or 4 jobs, $5 to $6 million projects. He earned the respect of architects, of engineers, of our subcontractors, of our employees, of their employees. And he has extremely high comprehension, so if he didn't know how to read very well, he reads on a 5th grade reading level, but his comprehension is so high that he's able to absorb whatever's spoken.
Wow.
And Omar Jr. had a gift for technology, and I was told that both boys would never graduate high school, let alone get into college. Jonathan was determined to prove his teacher wrong, so he ended up going to a 2-year college and graduated with a 4.0 GPA on a 5th grade reading level.
Wow.
And Omar is a chief technical officer of a technology company. He's making 6 digits, and I couldn't be a more proud mom because of the hardship that the school district put us through. I might have lost my marriage, but I won my children.
I love that. Well, I would love to introduce your son.
And this is Jonathan.
Oh my goodness. You guys are such a brave family.
Thank you.
And I love that you guys wore purple. Explain the purple choice.
The purple choice is the Jonathan Foundation for Children with Learning Disabilities is our nonprofit, and the theme is purple. And so we hold fundraisers every year. We raise money for psychoeducational assessments. We do a lot of advocacy and support for families that need the help that our family could not get 25 years ago.
So, well, we follow it. What's it called again?
The Jonathan Foundation for Children with Learning Disabilities.
Foundation for Children with Learning Disabilities. So everyone needs to follow that. And where can we follow you to see the progress and all the stuff that you guys are doing?
Well, you can get a copy of the book. I have a free ebook. You can go to unstoppableadvocacy.com and download my book and learn about the journey in us. And there's an abundance amount of resources in the book. You don't really need an advocate if you follow what the book says, and you could save an abundance amount of money. And if you really need an advocate, then feel free to call me or email me. All my contact information is in the book.
I love that. Thank you so much. And so so we have to get the book and then we can email you.
Yes.
I love that. So, and I love the title, Unstoppable, because that's what you guys are.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming on my show today.
Appreciate you having us.
And we can get this on Amazon.
Unstoppable. You can get it on Amazon, and you can get a free ebook at unstoppableadvocacy.com.
At unstoppableadvocacy.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Felt right in the moment, felt right in the summertime. It felt right drinking cherry wine with you. Just wanted to own it, just wanted to take the time, learn all the things that I could about you. Now it's such a mess here, oh we are just stressed here. Used to be so easy with you. Now I must confess here, oh I must confess dear, There's no more use in running, no more running to you. And I don't want your loving, I don't wanna be just friends, knowing all this time we were playing pretend. Playing pretend. Playing pretend. Ooh, playing pretend.
It's a mystery.